Imagine driving down a highway, the sun beating down, endless asphalt stretching before you. It's the kind of drive that's supposed to be freeing, windows down, music blasting, a real road trip adventure. But what if that adventure took a turn you never expected? A turn into the bizarre, the unsettling, the downright terrifying. Buckle up, because this story is about to take you for a ride. My name is Mary, and my friend Carol and I were making the long haul from Florida back to New Jersey. We'd been down south visiting some college friends, soaking up the sun and the good times. It had been a blast, but reality was calling us back north, back to our lives, our jobs, our routines. We decided to make the drive in one go, a straight shot, figuring we could power through, share the driving, and make it an adventure in itself. Initially, it was fun. The first few hours flew by. We were singing along to cheesy 80s music, catching up on gossip, making plans for when we got back home. We stocked up on snacks, chips, candy, those little powdered donuts that are terrible for you but somehow irresistible on a road trip. We were two girls on the open road, feeling young and carefree. We drove through the night, the world outside the car windows turning into a blur of headlights and shadows. Carol took the first driving shift, and I dozed off for a bit, waking up as the sun was just starting to peek over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. It was beautiful, that quiet dawn light, but a few hours later, the beauty faded into the relentless glare of the midday sun. My back started to ache, a dull throb from being in the same position for hours. I shifted in my seat, trying to get comfortable, but it was no use. "Carol," I said, stretching my arms and legs, "I think we need to pull over soon. My back is killing me." Carol, who was behind the wheel, nodded, her eyes scanning the highway signs. "Yeah, me too. Let's find an exit, get some gas, maybe grab some real food. I'm starving." We drove past a few exits, none of them looking particularly appealing. Just the usual highway off-ramps with generic gas stations and fast food joints. Finally, we saw a sign for a town. Something like Willow Creek, historic tourist town. It promised attractions, unique shops, local history, the whole tourist trap package. "Willow Creek?" I said, reading the sign aloud. "Sounds quaint." "Quaint and hopefully has coffee and a decent bathroom," Carol groaned, rubbing her eyes. "Let's try it." We took the exit, winding down a smaller road, the landscape changing from highway monotony to something different. It was still rural, fields stretching out on either side, but there was a stillness in the air, a quiet that felt a little too profound. As we drove closer to the town, an unsettling feeling started to creep in. Even as we pulled into Willow Creek, something felt off. The main street was eerily empty. A few cars were parked haphazardly along the curb, but there were no people walking around, no signs of life. The buildings lining the street looked tired, worn down, like they'd seen better days, decades ago. A little too worn down for a place supposedly catering to tourists. "This is weird," Carol said, voicing what I was already thinking. Tourist town? More like ghost town. It was hard to explain the feeling, but it was palpable, like stepping into a photograph that had faded, losing its color and vibrancy. You could sense something was wrong, a subtle dissonance in the air, without being able to put your finger on exactly what it was. It was like those ghost towns you sometimes drive through, where all the shop signs are still up, faded and peeling, but everything is clearly abandoned, left to decay. Yeah, that's what it felt like, only weirder. Because things weren't actually abandoned. They just looked that way, like they were going through the motions of being a town, but the life had drained out of them. It wasn't your typical haunted vibe, no cobwebs or creaking shutters. It was more subtle, more insidious. A sense of emptiness. A hollowness that resonated deep in your gut. Strange enough that even now, years later, the feeling still lingers in my mind. Our first stop was supposed to be a convenience store. We drove for a decent while, past the deserted main street, before we finally saw a sign for Stretch's Quick Stop on the outskirts of town. We pulled into the parking lot, the gravel crunching under the tires, the silence broken only by the hum of the engine. "Okay, let's grab snacks and drinks," I said, trying to sound upbeat, to shake off the weird feeling that was settling over me. We headed inside. The store itself looked pretty normal at first glance. Rows of brightly colored snacks, coolers filled with drinks, the usual convenience store fare. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting a harsh, sterile glow. A few people were milling around, browsed the aisles, but it was still strangely quiet, even for a convenience store. Carol was on a mission for a specific drink, some obscure brand of iced tea she was obsessed with. She started searching the coolers, growing increasingly frustrated. "Ugh, they don't have it," she exclaimed, slamming a cooler door shut. "Of course they don't have it. This place is depressing." Carol could be a bit of a drama queen, especially when she was tired and hungry. I indulged her mini tantrum, knowing she'd snap out of it soon. Okay, I said, trying to soothe her. "Let's try another store. There was another one across the street, right?" "Yeah, but ugh, I'm so thirsty," she whined. "Come on," I said, gently steering her towards the checkout. "I still want to get my Gatorade. We'll try the other place, okay?" I grabbed a Gatorade from the cooler and walked up to the counter to pay. The cashier was a woman, maybe in her early 30s, I guessed. Dark brown hair, pulled back in a ponytail on the taller side, wearing a blue polo shirt and suspenders. Suspenders? It was a little unexpected. Not exactly your typical convenience store uniform. "Just this?" she asked, her voice flat, almost monotone, not making eye contact. "Yeah, just the Gatorade," I said, handing her a $5 bill. She rang me up, made change, her movements mechanical, devoid of any warmth or personality. I paid for my drink, grabbed my change, and we left. Carol was already halfway across the street, heading towards the other convenience store, Pete's Pantry, the sign proclaimed. "Come on, slowpoke," she called back to me, impatience dripping from her voice. I hurried across the street, the unsettling feeling from before intensifying, tightening like a knot in my stomach. We walked into Pete's Pantry, and I literally felt my stomach drop. The cashier behind the counter looked exactly like the girl who'd been working at Stretch's Quick Stop. Same dark brown hair, same face, same height, same blue polo shirt, same suspenders. Identical. Uncannily, disturbingly identical. It was like looking at a mirror image, a glitch in the Matrix. I froze, right in the doorway, staring at her. I could feel my eyes widening, my mouth slightly agape. I could tell I was making her uncomfortable. She shifted her weight, her eyes narrowing slightly, a flicker of annoyance crossing her face. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice the same flat, monotone voice as the other cashier. Yeah, I stammered, my mind racing, trying to find a rational explanation for what I was seeing. Do you have a twin?" The question sounded ridiculous even as it left my lips. She gave me a weird look, almost skeptical, like I was pulling some kind of prank. "A twin?" she repeated, her eyebrows furrowing. "No, I don't have a twin." She paused, her gaze intensifying, almost accusatory. "And I'm an only child." A beat of silence hung in the air, thick with unspoken questions and growing unease. She narrowed her eyes further, her voice hardening slightly. "Is there something wrong? Is that a strange thing to ask, don't you think?" No. It's just," I fumbled for words, trying to explain the impossible, the illogical. "It's just, you look exactly like the cashier at the store across the street." Exactly. She just stared at me, her expression unchanging, unreadable. She didn't say anything, didn't acknowledge my explanation, didn't even seem to register what I was saying. It was like I was speaking a different language. A wave of dizziness washed over me, a weird sense of déjà vu, of unreality. I felt a sudden, overwhelming urge to get out of there, to escape this unsettling store, this unsettling town. I backed away slowly, dragging Carol along with me, who was still browsed the drink cooler, oblivious to the silent drama unfolding at the checkout. "Come on, Carol, let's go," I said, my voice urgent, pulling her arm. "Hey, I haven't found my drink yet," she protested, pulling back. "What's the rush?" "Just, come on," I insisted, my voice tighter now, laced with a growing anxiety. "We need to go. Now." Carol, sensing the shift in my tone, the urgency in my eyes, finally relented, abandoning her drink quest and following me out of the store. "What's wrong with you?" she asked, as soon as we were outside, blinking in the harsh sunlight. "What was that all about?" "You didn't see it?" I asked, my voice hushed, glancing back at Pete's pantry, half expecting the cashier to be watching us, to be different somehow. The cashier in there. She looked exactly like the girl at Stretch's. Exactly. Carol frowned, her brow furrowed in confusion. "What are you talking about? I don't remember what the other cashier looked like." "You're probably just tired, Mary. We've been driving all night." "No, Carol, I'm serious," I insisted, my voice rising slightly. They were identical. It was freaky. "We have to go back. You have to see." I grabbed her hand and started running back across the street, towards Stretch's quick stop, adrenaline pumping through my veins, a desperate need to prove to myself, to Carol, that I wasn't imagining things, that I wasn't losing my mind. We ran back into Stretch's, breathless, my heart pounding. I scanned the counter, my eyes searching for the familiar face, the dark hair, the suspenders. But the girl inside looked nothing like who I remembered seeing. She was completely different. Shorter, with light, blonde hair, pulled back in a messy bun. She looked middle-aged, maybe older, with tired eyes and a weary expression. Absolutely no chance anyone could have confused her for the other cashier. She didn't even look like she was in the same age range. It was as if I had imagined the whole thing, conjured up a phantom cashier in my sleep-deprived brain. Carol stared at the new cashier, then back at me, her expression a mixture of confusion and pity. "See," she said gently, her voice softer now, laced with concern. "You're just tired, Mary. You're imagining things. Let's just forget about it, okay?" But I know what I saw." I protested, my voice wavering, a knot of doubt tightening in my stomach. "I know I'm not imagining things. It was her, Carol. It was the same girl." "Mary," Carol said, putting a hand on my arm, her voice soothing, like she was talking to a child. "It's okay. Let's just go. Let's get some gas and get back on the highway. This town is giving me the creeps anyway." I knew I sounded crazy. I knew Carol thought I was losing it. And part of me, a small, insidious voice in the back of my mind, started to wonder if maybe I was. Maybe it was just exhaustion, stress, a trick of the light, a bizarre coincidence. Maybe I was just seeing things that weren't there. But deep down, I knew what I had seen. I knew it wasn't a dream, wasn't a hallucination. It was real. Something strange, something inexplicable, had just happened. And I couldn't shake the feeling that it was more than just a coincidence. Eventually, I had no choice but to let it go. Carol was right. This town was creepy, and I was tired, stressed, and probably not thinking straight. We needed gas anyway. We needed to get out of Willow Creek. We drove further down the main street, past more deserted shops and empty storefronts, until we saw a gas station sign in the distance. "Gas and Go," it proclaimed, in faded red letters. We pulled in, the Volvo sighing in relief as we came to a stop. The gas station was void of people, completely empty. Just our car, the pumps, and a small, boxy building at the back where you would pay. Not another car in sight. Not a single person pumping gas or walking around. We were literally the only car in the entire lot. "Okay, this is officially Twilight Zone territory," Carol muttered, unbuckling her seatbelt, a nervous laugh escaping her lips. "Let's just fill up and get out of here." We both got out of the car, the silence of the empty gas station pressing in on us. The wind picked up, whistling around the corners of the building, adding to the eerie atmosphere. Carol started fiddling with the gas pump, while I walked towards the small building to pay. The inside of the gas station building was just as deserted as the outside. A small, dimly lit convenience store, even more run-down than Stretch's, with dusty shelves and a stale, musty smell. No cashier in sight, just an empty counter, a flickering fluorescent light, and an unsettling silence. "Hello?" I called out, my voice echoing in the empty space. "Anyone here?" No response, just silence, and the faint hum of the refrigerators in the back. "Hello?" I called again, louder this time, a prickle of unease running down my spine. Still nothing, just silence, and the growing sense that we were completely alone. Carol walked in, looking around, her brow furrowed. "Where is everyone?" she asked, her voice hushed. "This is so weird." "I don't know," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "There's no one here." Carol took her sweet time browsed the meager drink selection, still searching for her elusive iced tea. Of course, it wasn't there either. She sighed dramatically, grabbing a bottle of water instead. I paid for the gas and her water at the self-checkout, the machine's robotic voice echoing unnaturally loud in the silent store. We left the building, walking back towards the car, a growing sense of unease settling over both of us. We couldn't have been inside for more than a few seconds. As we walked out of the gas station building, I again felt that weird feeling in my gut, that sense of something being wrong, off, distorted. What had, not 2 seconds ago, been a completely empty gas station, was now packed to the brim. The place was overflowing with people. It was the strangest, most jarring, most inexplicable thing I had ever witnessed. Cars filled every single pump, lined up 3 deep, engines idling, fumes filling the air. There were even cars lined up in the back lot, overflowing into the street, as if we'd wandered into rush hour at the busiest station in the state. And people, everywhere. Crowds of people, milling around, pumping gas, talking loudly, laughing, their voices a sudden, jarring cacophony after the oppressive silence. It was like a switch had been flipped, like someone had pressed a button and suddenly, the world had shifted. To make matters worse, it felt like everyone was staring at us. Eyes turned towards us, watching us, assessing us. As we walked to our car, through the sudden throng of people, I felt a wave of intense discomfort wash over me. I don't think I've ever felt more self-conscious, more scrutinized, more exposed. It wasn't just normal people watching. It was something else, something predatory. This time, even Carol noticed it. Her eyes widened, her breath catching in her throat. "Oh my God," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the sudden noise of the crowd. "Oh my God, Mary, did you see that? Did you see all these people? Where did they come from?" "I know," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "I know. It was empty just seconds ago. What is happening?" Carol agreed, her face pale, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and disbelief. "Something bizarre is going on," she said, her voice shaking. "I can feel it. We both feel it, right?" "Yeah," I said, my heart pounding in my chest. "Yeah, I feel it too. It's like we left reality for a second. And when we came back, something had shifted." We scrambled into the car, locking the doors, the sudden feeling of being trapped in a fishbowl intensifying. I started the engine, my hands shaking so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. "We need to get out of here," I said, my voice tight with panic. "We need to get back on the highway. Now." "Screw the food," Carol said, her voice trembling. "Screw everything. Just get us out of this town, Mary. Please." I didn't need any more convincing. I threw the car into reverse, backing out of the gas pump, ignoring the angry honks from the suddenly aggressive drivers around us. I pulled out of the gas station, tires squealing, and sped back towards the main road, towards the exit, towards anything that would take us away from Willow Creek. Back on the road, heading away from that unsettling town, we didn't say much for a while. The silence in the car was heavy, thick with unspoken fear and confusion. I wasn't scared, not exactly, but I just had a bad feeling in my gut, a deep, visceral sense of wrongness. I'm not sure how to even explain it. It was like every cell in my body was screaming at me, telling me to pay attention, to notice that something was fundamentally, terrifyingly wrong. As we got slightly further away from Willow Creek, the oppressive feeling started to lift, the knot in my stomach slowly loosening. Carol and I finally started to talk, our voices hushed, hesitant, trying to make sense of what had just happened. "Did you see those cashiers?" I asked, my voice still shaky. "They were the same person, Carol. I swear, they were identical." I don't know, Mary," Carol said, her voice still trembling. I was too freaked out by the gas station. All those people, where did they come from? It was empty, and then boom, crowded, like magic. And the cashiers, I insisted. You didn't notice? The suspenders? The dark hair? I guess I wasn't paying attention, Carol admitted, her brow furrowed. I was just trying to find my drink. And then the gas station. That was just too weird. As we were talking, trying to piece together the fragmented memories of Willow Creek, a car passed us in the opposite direction. A Toyota Sienna minivan. Nothing remarkable about it, except for the windshield. The windshield was cracked, badly cracked. A huge spiderweb crack running right across it, obscuring the driver's side view. And the side of the minivan was scratched up, dented, like it had been in a minor accident. It was hard to miss. Distinctive. Whoa, check out that windshield, Carol said, pointing at the passing minivan, her voice regaining a bit of its usual lightness, a nervous attempt to break the tension. That's impressive. I glanced in the rearview mirror, watching the minivan recede into the distance. Yeah, I said, a faint smile touching my lips. Someone's having a bad day. Carol made a joke about it, something about bad drivers and windshield repair bills, but I can't remember exactly what it was. It was just a fleeting moment of levity, a brief respite from the unsettling atmosphere that still clung to us. Just as we were starting to loosen up, to breathe again, to almost convince ourselves that we were overreacting, that Willow Creek was just a weird, run-down town with some odd coincidences, everything came crashing down again. About 10 minutes later, maybe less, it happened. We were driving along, the highway stretching out before us, the sun beating down, the landscape blurring into a monotonous green and brown. And then, in my rearview mirror, I saw it. A Toyota Sienna minivan, approaching fast. And as it got closer, as it pulled alongside us, I saw the windshield. The exact same minivan. The exact same cracked windshield. The exact same spiderweb pattern. The exact same scratches on the side. Identical. Undeniably, impossibly identical. It was the same minivan. I was 100% sure of it. No doubt in my mind. Again. It was passing us again. On the open highway. After we'd been driving for 10 minutes in a straight line, at a pretty fast clip. Carol, I said. My voice barely a whisper. My blood running cold. Carol, look. I pointed to the minivan in the next lane, my hand shaking so badly I could barely keep it steady. Carol turned her head, her eyes widening, her breath catching in her throat. She stared at the minivan, her face paling, her jaw dropping. "Oh my God," she whispered, over and over again. "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." Panic flared in her eyes, raw, unfiltered panic. I could see the color draining from her face, her hands clenching into fists in her lap. She was on the verge of a full-blown panic attack. "Speed up," she hissed, her voice tight with terror. "Speed up, Mary. Get away from it. Go faster." I didn't need to be told twice. My foot slammed down on the accelerator, the Volvo groaning in protest as it lurched forward, picking up speed. I gripped the steering wheel tightly, my knuckles white, my heart pounding like a drum solo in my chest. I was dying inside, terrified, confused, utterly bewildered. But I had to keep it together. For Carol's sake, and for my own. I was the driver. I had to get us out of this. I wanted nothing more than to get back on the highway, to leave Willow Creek, and this minivan, behind forever. I glanced down at the GPS, my eyes flickering over the screen, searching for some kind of reassurance, some kind of anchor in this swirling vortex of weirdness. And that's when I saw it. The time elapsed on the GPS. An hour. An hour had somehow passed since we had left the gas station in Willow Creek. An hour. Virtually impossible. We had been driving for maybe 10, 15 minutes, tops. Not an hour. Time was distorted. Warped. Something was fundamentally wrong. I wanted to tell Carol about the time, about the impossible hour that had vanished, but I didn't know if she could take any more weird stuff. She was already teetering on the edge of panic. I kept my mouth shut, my eyes fixed on the road ahead, my hands gripping the wheel, my heart hammering in my throat. Part of me wondered if the GPS was going to start taking us in circles, leading us back to Willow Creek, back to the gas station, back to whatever that town was. But then, finally, blessedly, the highway sign appeared in the distance. Interstate 95 North, it proclaimed, in bright green letters. The highway, salvation, escape. We merged onto the on-ramp, the Volvo finally hitting the familiar, reassuring rhythm of the interstate. And as we sped north, leaving Willow Creek and the phantom minivan behind, the nightmare ended, or seemed to end. By the time we got home, many hours later, exhausted, drained, and utterly bewildered, it felt like we were waking up from some strange, disjointed dream. The whole experience, the town, the cashiers, the gas station, the minivan, it all felt surreal, detached from reality, like it had happened to someone else in some other dimension. I'm not kidding. Even now, when I think back to it, the Willow Creek incident still feels like a dream. A vivid, unsettling, inexplicable dream. People usually look at me strangely when I tell them this story. They nod politely, their eyes glazing over, politely dismissing it as an overactive imagination or a trick of memory. I still can't explain what happened there. I don't expect any kind of rational explanation. I've tried doing research online, searching for similar stories, weird occurrences in places like Willow Creek, those forgotten, fated towns that seem to exist just outside the edges of reality. And I've actually found a handful of stories, scattered across internet forums and obscure websites, stories that are similar to mine. Stories of strange towns, of time distortions, of unsettling encounters, of a feeling of wrongness that permeates the very air. The weirdest thing about it, the thing that still haunts me, isn't the identical cashiers, or the phantom minivan, or the missing hour. It's the feeling, that gut feeling, that deep, visceral sense of unease, that primal instinct that screams at you that something is wrong. Something is fundamentally, terrifyingly wrong. Until that point, I really didn't know what it meant to get a bad vibe from something. But in Willow Creek, I learned. It's like every bone in your body is begging you to notice, to understand, to escape. I never want to get that feeling again. Never. But even now, years later, sometimes, when I'm driving late at night, on a long, empty stretch of highway, and the headlights stretch out into the darkness, and the world outside the car windows blurs into shadows and whispers, sometimes I still glance in my rearview mirror, just for a second, just to make sure, just to check if there's a Toyota Sienna minivan back there, with a cracked windshield, approaching fast, and sometimes, for just a fleeting moment, in the reflection of the glass, in the darkness beyond, I think I see it, coming for me, again. Wow, talk about a creepy road trip. That feeling of unease Mary and Carol experienced in Willow Creek is seriously unsettling, isn't it? The identical cashiers, the suddenly crowded gas station, and that minivan that just wouldn't quit. It all adds up to a truly bizarre and chilling experience. And that ending, is that minivan still out there? Are they still being followed? What was really happening in Willow Creek? So many unanswered questions. If you were on the edge of your seat listening to Mary's story and are desperate to know what might be lurking in her rearview mirror, then you know what to do. Smash that like button if you want to see part 2 and dive deeper into the mysteries of Willow Creek and that persistent minivan. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss the next installment. You definitely don't want to be left in the dark. And tell me in the comments, what do you think was going on in Willow Creek? Have you ever experienced anything like this on a road trip? Share your thoughts and theories below. I'm dying to hear them. Let's unravel this mystery together. Stay tuned for part 2, if you dare.